Before moving to year 2 properly, I'll go over something or someone that I glossed over during year 1. Back in 2013 and 2014, the character of Harley Quinn had not been oversaturated as badly as she has been following 2016 Suicide Squad movie with Margot Robbie's portrayal. So her presence in the Injustice series was somewhat balanced enough to keep it tolerable, and the way how she was used after being the Joker's accomplice was done so that every time she did show up, you didn't end up wishing she would go away, at first. As I briefly brought up in the previous video, after Superman murdered the Joker, Green Arrow caught Harley trying to escape from the police and locked her inside his Arrow cave for protection. In her own way, Harley was somewhat grateful for this protection, but that didn't stop her unlocking her restraints with a gag lockpick and going around to learn Green Arrow's real name is Oliver Queen, and then set up the fire that made Green Arrow decide to take her to Arkham when Batman and Superman were confronting each other there. Harley wasn't seen again after the prison riot calmed down after Nightwing died. This brings us to year 1's annual issue, set after Caliban's invasion when Lobo is hired by Darkseid to take vengeance on Superman for his son's death. Not out of fatherly love, but for the principle of not letting Caliban's death slide past without consequences. Long story short, because this opening doesn't need to be any longer, Lobo quickly realizes not to bother after Superman flies him to Sun and back, and if Lobo wants to be useful, he should go hunt Harley down, as she has not paid for her part in Metropolis' destruction. Lobo is paid with a 5U93R bill that Harley swipes after being caught by the bounty hunter, and flees to Green Arrow and Black Canary because she doesn't know who else to turn to. They take out Lobo together out of necessity, and then Harley uses her psychiatrist background to make Lobo piss off Darkseid instead. Okay, annual recap over, let's get to year 2 of Injustice. The second year of Injustice opens with a flashback from the good old days between Oliver Queen, Dinah Lance and Hal Jordan before bringing us to the present day in Oliver's funeral where Dinah and Hal are not friends anymore, as Hal has chosen to side with Superman even after he killed Oliver. Superman arrives later to the funeral and attempts to apologize for killing Oliver by excusing it as an accident, aka lying as we saw in year 1. Dinah responds to Superman's lies with her canary cry as a woman's scorn, aggravating him to grab her, but Dinah's fearless demeanor and revelation that she is pregnant with Oliver's child causes Superman to fly away. He is later shown confronting Police Commissioner Gordon on the roof of the GCPD building by the bat signal in trying to learn where Batman is hiding. Gordon genuinely doesn't know where Batman is, but when telling Superman that the law of justice he serves doesn't see Batman as a fugitive or a criminal, Superman apathically reveals that he can see Commissioner Gordon has developed lung cancer as a result of his smoking habit, and implies that the Justice League could have helped him get treatment for it in exchange for siding with them. As for Batman's current situation, after Alfred carried him out of the Batcave, he contacted a friend of the family, Zatanna Zatara, who used her magical connections to bring Bruce to recover from his back injury to the Tower of Dr. Fate, which is located outside the space and time, and so makes it the perfect hiding place outside of Earth for Bruce to rest and recover. Around this time, the readers are introduced to a new player entering the power struggle on Earth through Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, as he is ambushed by the Sinestro Corps observing the situation on Earth. Their leader Sinestro, yep, he named his corps after himself, tells Kyle that he sees Superman's recent activity not so different from his own past actions on his own planet of Korugar, and in his action, Superman as a potential future ally. Kyle, who has been away from Earth for the last year, tries to call Sinestro out on his delusions by reaffirming his faith on Superman, before Sinestro reminds him of his current situation and makes the Green Lantern feel fear, which is what the Sinestro Corps uses to power their rings, which in Kyle's case escalates as Sinestro tears away his Green Lantern power ring by the finger and lets his corpsmen tear Kyle apart in the cold loneliness of space. Kyle's death is seen as going MIA on planet Oa, home of the Guardians of the Universe and their Green Lantern Corps. This weighs in heavily on the growing suspicion of Ganthet, the most humane of the Guardians, who has been observing the shift in power on Earth that Hal Jordan has been too supportive of in the Guardians' point of view. Due to his possible indoctrination into Superman's cause, the Guardians decide to send Green Lantern Guy Gardner, who like Kyle has not been to Earth for a year and so doesn't buy that Superman could have gone Breaking Bad, to inspect the situation along with Gambit. While they are on their way to Earth, Superman tells Hal Jordan and the Flash to go keep the US Congress from shutting down the US government by forcing them to be locked inside the Congress building to draw a bill that would keep them from shutting down. During this lockdown/hostage situation, Queen Hippolyta and some Amazons take Wonder Woman from the Justice League Watchtower to recover from her Darwin Award level coma on Themyscira. As Superman is handing Wonder Woman to her people, Sinestro makes his presence known outside of the Watchtower, and just barely manages to give his warning through Superman's hostile welcome about Guy Gardner's and Gambit's arrival on Earth. These two arrive just as Hal and the Flash release the Congress, where Guy comments on how impressed he is on the stunt they pulled, and Gambit immediately demands Hal to take them to meet Superman. The meeting goes down less than well because of Sinestro having managed to come to Superman first, and telling Superman something that makes him hostile against Gambit's plea to stop what he is doing. And this is something I need to comment on. The thing with the Green Lantern Corps is that they are basically intergalactic police force, and they have jurisdiction over 3600 galaxies or space sectors as they are called. Earth is on the space sector 2814, and Krypton used to be on space sector 2813, both on Green Lantern Corps jurisdiction and overseen by the Guardians of the Universe. This is what Sinestro told Superman, by either telling or implying that the Guardians watched as Krypton exploded and did nothing to help. However, I want to comment on that the Kryptonian society in its final days was essentially filled with isolationists by tradition, which is why they decided to stay on the dying planet as it was blowing up, and the reason why Jor-El was the only one who sent his son off Krypton. This also points towards the realization that even if the Guardians had sent Green Lanterns to help, those Green Lanterns would have been turned away as outsiders. Gambit could use this as his counter-argument instead of just vaguely saying that the Kryptonians doomed themselves, which leads to Superman demanding him to leave Earth. Disappointed in seeing what Superman has become, Gambit leaves while taking Hal back to Oa with him and leaving Guy in charge of the space sector. After they have left, Sinestro talks to Superman about how the Guardians just want to control rather than protect, but Superman does not trust the villain yet. Sinestro responds to this by not needing his trust, just that Superman knows that he will be needing the Sinestro Corps when the Green Lanterns will be coming for him in full force. In the middle of all this, Superman and Lex Luthor have also decided to release their 5U-93R powered stormtroopers to act as peacekeepers in bringing order to Gotham in Batman's absence, and Commissioner Gordon is forced to let them take over by the order of the mayor, after Superman told him that Gordon has failed the city with the worst crime rate in the country. After being forced to let the stormtroopers into his city, Gordon decides to stop pretending to be ignorant of his daughter Barbara's past as Batgirl and current identity as Oracle, by walking into her base and demanding to know where Batman is. Learning of Batman's current situation in the Tower of Fate, Gordon tells Barbara about the stormtroopers taking over Gotham's policing from the GCPD, and with heavy hearts, lets his daughter know that he is dying of lung cancer. After the father and daughter have had this moment to come to terms with his coming death, Barbara lets Commissioner Gordon know that even during Batman's recovery, the Birds of Prey— No! Not Margot Robbie's Vanity Project! These Birds of Prey and Batwoman— GET THE FUCK AWAY with those CW character assassinations! The Birds of Prey and Batwoman are still willing to work with Commissioner Gordon and the GCPD in protecting Gotham from the outside invaders. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, Sinestro has been placed into a cell as the heroes are still sane enough not to trust the supervillain. Lex Luthor and the Flash especially, but Sinestro is able to plant more seeds in getting Superman to sympathize with him by telling an abridged version of how he fell out of favor with the Guardians and the Green Lantern Corps. I say abridged because we are shown that Sinestro's narration does not match with the drawn visuals shown of how he abused his power as a Green Lantern by topping his home planet of Korugar's government to become a dictator instead of arresting them for being corrupt, how his wife committed a suicide instead of being assassinated by his opposers, and how he fought tooth and nail against his fellow Green Lanterns instead of trying to explain himself to them when they were forced to come strip him of his power ring. This aspect is actually something that I must admit is admirable in Sinestro's characterization. Not in what he does, but how he manages to do it. While only Superman ends up believing Sinestro's abridged story, the Flash and Lex Luthor do not, and Sinestro knows how to deal with it by showing he could escape from his cell if he wanted to, before surrendering his yellow power ring and returning to his cell, while also admitting he is no longer a good man, but Superman will be needing his help soon. On Oa, Ganthet and the other Guardians recall a large number of their Green Lanterns while hearing Hal out on how he is on board with Superman's cause, before dismissing him and giving Kilowog, the Corps drill sergeant, the mission to take the recalled lanterns with him to Earth and bring Superman to Oa. Hal, who has been on board with Superman's cause, is actively against this and tries to flee, for which he has his ring taken away and put into a holding cell, but is broken out of it by John Stewart, another Earth-based Green Lantern who has not been to Earth for a year and still believes in Superman. While Kilowog's squad of Green Lanterns is on its way to Earth, GCPD Lieutenant Harvey Bullock comes across one of the 5U-93R-powered stormtroopers harassing citizens for breaking the curfew, and when trying to defuse the situation as a member of the law enforcement, ends up getting sent to hospital because the stormtrooper read Bullock's attempt to show him his police badge as reaching for a weapon. Bullock is later picked up from the hospital by Commissioner Gordon and his partner Renee Montoya, who tell him to leave his badge behind as they leave to join the Resistance. The Green Lanterns arrive on Earth and are greeted by Superman, Hawkgirl, and Shazam. Upon noticing Hal's absence among the Lanterns and not being given a straight answer about his whereabouts, Superman gives Cyborg the order to open fire on the Green Lanterns from the Watchtower and the orbit. The first blow leads to a fight between them and the Green Lanterns, who overpower the three superheroes in numbers and end up initially getting the upper hand thanks to the Green Lantern Chip, who looks and is the same size as a squirrel, and is so able to unpredictably use his ring to keep Superman's brain from firing synapses or otherwise to fight back. It would be an over and done case with the Green Lanterns leaving to Oa with Superman while holding Hawker and Shazam back if Luthor wouldn't have been observing the confrontation while standing by to guard Sinestro's cell, and Sinestro manipulating Luthor into letting him out while returning his ring to him, which leads to Sinestro entering the confrontation as a third party and killing Chip by driving a stake through the poor squirrel's head. Sinestro's actions bring Superman back into fighting, and around the same time, Guy Gardner goes to pay his respects to Dinah after learning about Oliver's death in Superman's hands. Talking with Dinah, Guy learns more about how Superman's new cause has changed the world from the last time he was on Earth, along with the existence of 5U-93R pills used by Superman's stormtroopers and the Gotham Resistance. Guy also tells Dinah about Kyle being missing, and after seeing Superman almost come into blows with Ganthet, fears if Superman in what he has become during Guy's absence from Earth could have somehow been involved in Kyle's disappearance. It is around this time when Hal Jordan and John Stewart catch up with the other Green Lanterns sent to Earth, and arrive to find them fighting against not only Superman's faction but also Sinestro. When Hal and John manage to break down their fight, Sinestro reveals his own corpsmen having also arrived to side with Superman. Kilowog is so forced to admit defeat, but Sinestro claims that letting the Green Lanterns retreat back to Oa would only lead them reporting back to the Guardians, who would retaliate by sending more Green Lanterns next time. Superman, not being the tyrannical dictator he will be in year 5 yet, refuses to Sinestro's suggestion to execute the Green Lanterns and rather takes them in as prisoners of war, while also telling Sinestro that his gratitude of saving him from the Green Lanterns only extends to him but not to his corpse. Sinestro is willing to send his corpsmen off Earth as he remains on the planet to support Superman's side. Hal and John, who are allowed to keep their rings, are taken back by Superman's trust in Sinestro, but that is nothing compared to Guy's reaction of witnessing the Sinestro Corp leaving Earth and reporting it back to the Guardians on Oa as well as to Dinah. Guy's message reaches Dinah when she is attending a resistance meeting led by Commissioner Gordon as Black Canary with the other Birds of Prey and the former members of the GCPD. Gordon, with Bullock, Montoya and the Birds of Prey standing behind him, tells his former allies and colleagues that their city is being invaded by an outside force abusing its power on their citizens. When in doubt, Gordon lets them see the effects of the 5U93R pill as their secret weapon by taking one himself and surviving a gunshot to the head. After the meeting, Dinah goes to pick up something she thinks she has forgotten at Oliver's former hideout, and finds Harley Quinn hiding in the Arrow Cave. Dinah attacks her, seeing the villain in her dead lover's home, but then calls a timeout when she suddenly needs to vomit because of what Harley recognizes as morning sickness. Reminding from the beginning that Dinah is pregnant with Oliver's child, which makes Harley briefly nostalgic of the time when she was once upon a time pregnant with the Joker's daughter, left him for a year to give birth, and how her daughter currently lives with her sister. On one hand, this is a good moment for both Dinah and Harley to bond and lead toward her joining the Resistance to try repay for her part in turning Superman into a tyrant. On the other hand, the fact that Harley assisted the Joker in the operation of installing the heart monitor to Lois, given this revelation of her past, Harley's motivation for asking to join the Resistance should be more out of the guilt for her part in killing Lois and destroying Metropolis, which turned Superman into the tyrant he is developing into, not because of, like with Dinah, Superman killed her man. Tom Taylor does not acknowledge this fact until the Injustice 2 comic, which is set between the video games, and where people start confronting Harley over her part in it. Kai is shown around this point to have reached back to Oa with the skin of his teeth after fleeing the Sinestro corps. He reports to Ganthet and the other Guardians about how Kilowog's squad has been taken in as prisoners of war after the Sinestro corps arrived to support Superman. The Guardians know this as a worst-case scenario that they cannot leave alone, but due to their responsibilities in the other 3,599 space sectors, they cannot do anything about it yet. Until the Green Lanterns can come back to assist them, the Gotham Resistance begins to capture individual 5U93R powered stormtroopers as Commissioner Gordon declares them an invading force that does not get their rights read to them, but rather as prisoners of war that they will be interrogated for every ounce of information they can give. Following this, we are given a 7-month time skip arc, which is covered in the 2 stories told in the Year 2 annual issue. The first story in it circles around Commissioner Gordon, Barbara, Harley and the Birds of Prey being harassed and tortured by Clayface, whom Superman had sent to infiltrate their ranks and break their morale by posing as their deceased loved ones. It left me weirded out why Barbara would have a picture of her dead mother and the boyfriend standing side by side. But another thing is also set up in that eventually got either retconned or ignored 2 years later when Brian Bacalado had taken over as the main writer. The second story has Hal Jordan and Sinestro starring in it, having been given a mission by Superman to retrieve some weapon from the antimatter universe of Qward. It is essentially a road trip between the two and meant to rebuild the student-mentor friendship between them. Before he took over Korugar and was stripped of his Green Lantern ring, Sinestro used to be Hal's mentor when he got his power ring, and the fact that Hal's power ring used to belong to Abin Sur, Sinestro's own former mentor and his brother-in-law. Sinestro has so always seen Hal from his point of view as who he himself used to be, in the spirit of his old friend, with the fact that he trained Hal to be the Green Lantern he is today as one of his greatest accomplishments. Even after Sinestro was stripped of his ring and all the times the two have fought as enemies, Sinestro sees that he and Hal will always be friends, which in the middle of all the lies and bent half-truths he has told to justify his support for Superman's cause is the most genuine thing about him in Injustice, as another tragedy on the pile. The 7-month time skip picks up at Dinah giving birth to Oliver's son, who is named Connor, while Sinestro is shown framing himself doing a heroic deed by having his corpsmen throw Despero into Earth from space, and upon seeing Hal and John approaching, uses his ring to make Despero look like he is trying to choke Sinestro to justify killing him to the 2 Green Lanterns. While being accompanied by Harley at the hospital, Dinah gets a call from a guy who is now coming to help the Resistance with a large force of Green Lanterns, including the living planet Mogo. However, due to Mogo's large size as a living planet and their numbers, the Sinestro Corps sees Guy's squad coming and reports it to Superman, who in preparation for their arrival addresses the entire world in a speech to inspire them to become human shields for the Sinestro Corps. All the while Sinestro is shown standing next to him like Grima Wormtongue next to King Theoden. By the eve of the Green Lantern's arrival, Batman's recovery has reached that point where he can now stand again and begin his physical training to regain his mobility. That is still not enough for him to join the fight the next day, so all he can do so far as he is allowed is to boost their side's morale with his own speech to them and stay recovering in the Tower of Fate. It is during this speech Batman gives when he suggests his side to spend the day before with their loved ones, where in the Injustice versions of Batwoman and Renee Montoya are revealed, privately just to the readers, to be a married lesbian couple. Back in 2014, this was seen as a relatively big deal because at the time in her own ongoing series, the superior when compared to the CW version of Kate Kane was supposed to marry her girlfriend, but DC put a stop to that on the grounds of not letting their heroes be married to significant others. Needless to say, this would not have become a big issue if DC had just left it alone and let Batwoman comic book series writing team do what they had planned to do. And I'm not saying that as something that should be celebrated or as an LGBTQ plus issue. I'm bringing it up as something set up in the narrative of the story of Injustice that has bothered me since Brian Bacalado took over from Tom Taylor from year 3's halfway point forward. More about it when we get there, this has been more of an early heads up. After giving his speech, Batman is left to the Tower of Fate in the company of Zatanna and Dinah's newborn baby, as she, Alfred, and Catwoman are sent away to prepare for the upcoming battle. As soon as they are gone, Batman tells Zatanna to send him to Oracle's clock tower so he can work with Barbara as their coordinator during the battle, as the least he can do in his current condition. Guy and his squad of Green Lanterns arrive to Earth's base and are approached by Superman, Hal, John, and Sinestro along with his corpsmen. Superman, Hal, and John allow Guy to an audience to plead his case in saying everything that is coming can still be avoided if Superman agrees to come face the Guardians and renounce any alliances he has made with the Sinestro Corps. Superman's apathic response is that the same result would be reached if the Green Lanterns turned around and left. Alarm bells should be ringing at this point, as Guy Gardner of all people is here as the voice of reason in telling Superman that standing with the Sinestro Corps is far from the wise, considering their membership and how their power rings work by instilling fear on those they prey upon. And then Guy makes the same mistake Batman did in year 1 by referring to Superman as Clark, which leads to Superman calling Guy an embarrassment to not only the Justice League in the past, but now also to Earth, which he likely said to provoke Guy into throwing the first punch. Superman easily dodges Guy's punch and counters it by breaking his arm, which is seen by both Lantern Corps as the sign to attack each other. John goes after Guy, whom Superman had thrown away after breaking his arm, and Guy warns John about what their battle plan is. The Guardians want to eradicate the Sinestro Corps, and that is the reason why Mogo was brought with them. Mogo fires a powerful blast of the living planet's willpower, which serves two purposes. First, in eradicating a quarter of the Sinestro Corps members in Earth's space, and second, in giving the signal to GCPD and the Birds of Prey to begin their ground assaults. And at this point, the Year 2 comic began to come out with every other issue focusing on the Green Lantern side, and every other issue on the ground assault side. In order to avoid jumping back and forth, I will first cover the ground team side, led by Commissioner Gordon, and after that the Green Lanterns versus the Sinestro Corps side. Commissioner Gordon leads the attack on the Hall of Justice, where Harley Quinn and Catwoman are used to strategically neutralize the Flash as their first biggest threat, before they storm the Hall of Justice, while Huntress and Batwoman attempt to commandeer fighter jets at the Ferris Air Base, and Alfred prepares Dinah as Black Canary for their planned attack on Superman at the Batcave by Batplane. They have one kryptonite bullet to use on Superman, which Batman over the comms tells Black Canary to use non-lethally so he can be handled over to the Green Lanterns when their side has won. Dinah gives no promises and just says that the guy with the best aim is dead, to which Batman merely responds by informing her that the Batplane, which she will be using, is lead-lined, so Superman would assume it would be Batman flying it if he can't see inside it. At the Hall of Justice, Catwoman and the horde of former GCPD officers overpower Robin, aka Damian Wayne, who is Batman's son, who along with the Flash, Cyborg and Lex Luthor were the only ones there along with their stormtroopers. Hawkgirl says later in Year 5 that she was on planet Thanagar during this, but why isn't Shazam here? Yet, before the Resistance reaches them, Cyborg manages to catch Oracle's presence having hacked itself into their comms, and instead of shutting them down at the risk of blinding their stormtroopers cutting contact with Superman in space, Cyborg retreats to the Watchtower to trace Oracle's location in peace from the storming GCPD officers. Victor says about this to Luthor before stepping on the teleporter and leaving him alone to be confronted by Gordon and his people. Here Luthor outs himself as a double agent working for both sides, having been the source of information telling Batman about 5U93R Pill's creation in Fortress of Solitude last year, and having tried to warn Batman about Superman coming for him afterwards. To uphold his cover as a double agent, he surrenders himself to Gordon and privately tells him about Cyborg attempting to track down his daughter's location. Gordon goes with Luthor to the teleporters and to help Luthor keep his cover, confronts Cyborg at gunpoint after having knocked out Luthor to make him appear to have been coerced into letting Gordon into the Watchtower. In the confrontation, Cyborg notices that the use of the 5U93R pills have also enhanced not only Gordon's strength and durability, but also his cancer's development, meaning that the police commissioner is already a dead man walking with nothing left to lose. Besides his daughter's safety, and in order to keep her safe, Gordon is not afraid to charge at Cyborg to make his trace on Oracle's location shut down by tearing off Cyborg's faceplate and other augmentations. With Cyborg out of the game, Gordon sends him along with Luthor back to his people at Hall of Justice, while letting him know that Luthor is a secret safe with him. Yeah, that's what he says here. I can't be the only one who got bothered by this typo. I don't know if the series has been given any re-releases that have worked to fix it, but it's here in this version I have been working with. Gordon then calls Barbara on a secure line to let her know that her location and identity as Oracle are safe, while looking down at Earth from the orbit and declaring that Superman is a criminal who can't have their world. Batman responds to Gordon, who is pleased to hear his old friend's voice here in the end, asking him to keep serving Gotham in his absence, and finally tells Batman that it is his turn to disappear on him, as the radio goes silent. Barbara is struck with grief over her father's death, but is still willing to keep operating as Oracle through the ongoing battle with Batman. As the Hall of Justice has now been taken over, our focus now moves to Ferris Air, where Batwoman and Huntress are commandeering fighter jets, which the CEO Carol Ferris calls into her sometimes boyfriend/employee Hal Jordan. Hearing that his boss/girlfriend is in a potential danger from the enemy side, Hal leaves the battle in space to go help Carol in keeping her jets from being stolen and to know she is safe, while also being followed by Guy and Sinestro. Even in front of Carol, Hal keeps insisting that Superman's side is in the right when Guy comes to give one last honest plea for him to come back to his senses, in reminding that he, John and Kyle would never have gotten their rings if Hal had not been Earth's first Green Lantern, and how he is supposed to be the best of them. Guy's plea falls into deaf ears as Hal does nothing to stop Sinestro ordering his death from his corpsmen, and with a clearly broken heart tells Hal that he never believed it would come to this, as Ganthet makes his appearance in keeping Guy alive. Sinestro responds to Ganthet's presence by throwing one of Carol's jets at him, which the Guardian destroys before it makes impact, but also causes debris to fall on the ground near Carol. Guy saves Carol from the falling debris, but Hal does not see it as the good deed it is, and responds to it by tearing Carol to himself and punching Guy with a mace construct. Ganthet sees this as the last straw in Hal breaking the Green Lantern's oath, and so takes away his power ring, while both Hal and Carol are still high up in the air, which gives Sinestro the opportunity to offer his corpse power into Hal to both save Carol and keep him on their side. Using Carol's fear of death while falling, Hal is able to save her now as a Yellow Lantern, which Ganthet apathetically sees as him having fallen out of the Guardian's favor like Sinestro, who furiously calls his corpse better than the Green Lantern's, but Ganthet dismisses it as a sign of pride when turning to leave. In the middle of this confrontation as their distraction, Huntress and Batwoman commandeer other fighter jets to take to the sky, joining with Black Canary flying the Batplane. Sinestro takes Ganthet's dismissal of him as an insult, but cannot attack as Ganthet reminds him of his own power as a guardian by killing two of his accompanying corpsmen, while reminding Sinestro of his insignificance. Ganthet then moves to save Green Lantern Salak from Superman and fires him off space to Earth's orbit to be first caught by Sinestro Corps, before Huntress and Batwoman arrive on their jets and separate them from Superman. Recovering from these attacks, Superman sees the lead-lined Batplane coming at him and fires his heat vision at it, thinking Batman is on board, but is then attacked by the 5U-93R powered Black Canary's Canary Cry as she flies out of the destroyed Batplane and brings them both down. On ground, Superman tries in vain to plead with Black Canary over everything he has done, but the woman scorned refuses to buy what he is selling, as like with everyone on Batman's side, Dinah can see that Superman is not Clark Kent anymore. She shoots the kryptonite bullet into his chest, missing anything vital on purpose as a favor to Batman, who stupidly still sees the Clark Kent in this Superman, and so that the Green Lanterns can take him off their planet to stand trial on Oa. Once they are done fighting the Sinestro Corps, which shouldn't be long anymore since Ganthet is presented to be extremely overpowered in one-shotting multiple Sinestro Corpsmen at once and passively handling Shazam, who just now showed up. The Justice League members on Superman's side have also been taken into custody, so all that's left is for Dinah to do is to let Guy know to come pick up Superman to take to Oa with Ganthet. But the reality of war between the two Lantern Corps is that as Lanterns die, their rings leave to find new wearers, and a lone Sinestro Corps ring finds its way to this Superman, who has invoked fear for the last 2 years in everyone opposing him, and grants him with the power to use his fear to remove the kryptonite bullet and kill Dinah as the ring welcomes him into the Sinestro Corps. Before dying, however, Dinah reveals that she has been wearing special contact lenses that recorded Superman killing her for Batman and Oracle to stream across the world, for everyone to see that Superman is not their savior, but rather a tyrant ruling over them. Enraged Superman flies back into space, while Sinestro kills Jon Stewart knowing he wouldn't stay on their side even after they won, and frames his death on Guy Gardner to fool Hal into killing the broken-hearted Guy in seeing how far he has fallen with Superman and Sinestro. As Superman flies to confront Ganthet, Batman realizes that they cannot win anymore after they streamed footage of Superman commit murder to the entire world after he got the Sinestro Corps ring, because now he will be powered by the fear of everyone on Earth. He rightfully calls out a full retreat as Superman's newly gained power is shown being too much for both Ganthet and Mogul to stand up against, when Superman alone pushes them into the sun, killing both the Guardian and the living planet. Year 2 ends on an epilogue of Dr. Fate approaching Black Canary's dying corpse on the ground, removing his helmet of Naboo, and deciding as Kent Nelson to defy fate. Dinah is shown later waking up in a cottage with Kent Nelson telling her he intervened with her fate to die, and brought her to another world where the local version of her died 5 years prior. Nelson introduces Dinah to another version of her dead husband holding her few days old baby, and tells them he cannot promise them anything but each other, and in departure wishes their son Connor a wonderful life. Left by themselves, his new version of Oliver recognizes the baby's name as something he would have named their child as well, and so recognizes Dinah as his pretty bird. This part of the video was written after I finished editing what came before it. I had originally done a completely different ending part for this video, and seeing how it has already become longer than year 1 video, it shouldn't come as a shock why I'm not covering the first half of year 3 here in this video too, as I said I might at the end of year 1 video. On a related note with Injustice, around the same time I was editing this video, Grant Morrison gave Hanen thoughts about how Han saw Superman becoming evil just from Lois dying being stupid, by comparing it to how Han itse came to terms with Hanen's own parents' deaths. To which I'm going to respond by pointing out that Lois Lane was not Superman's mother. She was, as I said in year 1 video, Clark Kent's wife and the mother of their unborn child. Death of one's parents and the death of one's spouse are not in any ways comparable, as humans in their old age are expected to die eventually. I tried to Google Grant Morrison's parents with poor success to learn if they died when Han was a younger child or an adult when it happened, because the death of one's parents as an adult would certainly not be the same thing as with a child. Superman's parents in Injustice are still alive, and it was the loss of the person he had found a connection with whose loss set him into this path. I don't currently have anyone in my life right now, but I can imagine how it must feel if I were to find that person who would be it for me, only to have Hanet be taken away from me forcefully before our time together is done. Dinah in year 2 was someone like that, as she lost Oliver to Superman's madness, but thanks to the support from Birds of Prey and Batman's side in general, along with her son, that gave her something to focus on moving forward. In year 1, Superman also didn't immediately jump into becoming a full-on tyrant, but rather a more active responder by abandoning his identity as Clark Kent and just being Superman 24/7. And another thing that Grant Morrison didn't take into account were the external factors influencing Superman's descent into tyranny. Here in Injustice, those external factors were the worst version of Wonder Woman standing next to him, not taking criticism from Batman's side in telling him what not to do, and here in year 2, it was allowing the literal definition of Space Hitler and his army of space Nazis stand beside him enforcing order and peace. As far as I was able to Google about Hanesta, Grant Morrison doesn't seem to have any ties in Hanen past to those kinds of extremist groups, and Hanen baldness does not appear to be a political statement. I don't know how much different Superman's descent into tyrannical madness could have become if Sinestro never approached him, but it is clear that the reverse psychology of doing the exact opposite of what his detractors ask him to do is where Superman's mental maturity is now. With Ganthet's plea and Tom Taylor changing Krypton's isolationist traditions in making it so that the Green Lanterns probably could have come to help Krypton evacuate more people, it's clear that this change was made just to give Superman a strong excuse to not listen to someone older and wiser than him. On the off chance that Grant Morrison could have been talking about Henry Cavill's Superman becoming evil after the events of Zack Snyder's Justice League with Amy Adams' Lois being killed, there is another external factor that would have influenced him in a moment of weakness in Darkseid using the anti-life equation, as revealed in those whiteboards that leaked out last spring. No further disrespect to Grant Morrison, but Han should have thought a little further and harder in how this subject has been done, for better and for worse. By now I have been able to write down the coverage of Tom Taylor's half of Injustice Year 3, but I think I'll have some other smaller videos, like reviews or music videos, done before starting to work on that one. I'll also bring up that I don't have a Patreon or other platforms supporting me, and no one is so paying or supporting me in making videos like this. If you have made it this far into the end, I thank you for watching and ask that you like the video, comment your thoughts down below, share the video to other people, and subscribe for what other videos I have being done next. And may your heart be your guiding key.